Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our latest installment of our Microsoft tutorials. Today we'll be taking a look at some basic functions of the Microsoft Excel program. We have a list of 10 questions that we'll be reviewing, and I'll show you how to do some of the finer things in Microsoft Excel, and you can kind of copy along with me. And then when you create your own documents, you'll know how to do these tasks. So starting off at the top of the page, number 1, create a column heading in cell C4 for the data listed below. This is about cell identification, being able to identify and name the cell that you're in. So if I were to select this cell has a name. It is called G4. I know that by looking at the columns, which are letters, G, and the rows, which are numbers, which is 4. So this cell is G4. If I want to enter a heading in C4, I'd navigate over there to C4, and I can enter some information here about the data that is underneath. And since all of these are animals, I'm going to type in the heading animals. You might notice that some of them are, or all of them are, also mammals, so you could have different headings if you choose, but just one that represents your data. Moving on to question number 2. Use the sort tool to put the data in alphabetical order. So in order to use the sort tool appropriately, the first thing I have to do is select some information to sort or to put in order. Many students make the mistake of trying to sort information. The sort tool on the home tab in the top left right hand corner. If you don't have anything selected, you'll have a very confused computer because there's no information to put in order. So first thing is first, and that is highlighting the information you want to sort. And make sure you don't highlight any extra cells. That usually doesn't work out very well either. And so just highlight from the dog all the way down to cat 2, and so all the information is highlighted, nothing more, nothing less. I click on the sort function, and it is going to sort everything from A to Z, so it all switches around, so it's in alphabetical order. And while I have that information highlighted, I'm going to insert a chart into the using the data that's already selected. So since it's already there, I'm going to click on the Insert tab because I'm putting something into my document. And I'm going to find one of these charts up here. Recommended charts is something the computer makes it easy for me. If I have some information, it usually comes up with a fairly decent chart that I can enter into my document. And so the first one looks pretty good. I'm just going to click OK, and that chart gets entered here into my Microsoft Excel document. We'll work with sizes and putting it in the appropriate place in a later question. Moving down to question number 4, insert an image of one of the animals on the list above. So we just got done graphing all this information, and now what we're going to be looking to do is to insert an online picture. And so I'm going to click on a cell that is underneath here because I don't want to insert that into my chart. I want to insert it somewhere down here, and so then I'm going to click insert. Because it's not maximized here, I have this illustrations tab, which is where my online pictures are. If it was maximized, you would see that online pictures tab up there. So I navigate through to find online pictures. Once I do that, I've got a search engine from Bing, and I'm going to type in one of those animals that's up there. And in this case, it's loading very slowly. I'm just going to close it and try that again because it usually works out a little bit better. The second time, there it goes, sure enough. And so I'm going to put a picture of a dog. So I type in the word dog, click enter. Of course, I get a number of cute little pictures here. I'm going to select one of those dogs. This looks like a good one. Click insert. Now I've got this giant picture of a dog. I'm going to resize this image and keep all the proportions. And to do that, I'm going to click on one of these diagonal boxes. It doesn't really matter which one I use. But if I want to keep the proportions of it, then I've got to use the diagonal squares. If I pull out, I can resize on the sides, but it's going to make it look a little bit sillier and flatten it out. And so I want to make sure that I keep the proportions by using those diagonal boxes. The next thing I'm going to do in question number 5 is to crop the image so that you can only see the eyes and the nose of this dog, so this little area here. And so to crop is really just to cut out. I can do that a couple of different ways. Since I'm on the picture, I have selected the picture, it will pop up with this Picture Tools Format tab, and in there is the cropping tool. Another way to do it is to right click and you'll see the cropping tool right up on top, and when you click on crop you have these new black arrows that pop up and you can drag them in and select the part of the picture that you want to keep and cut out everything else. And so we just want the eyes and the nose for this picture, and then when I select off the picture everything disappears, and that's good. So now I've got the eyes and the nose, and that's it. And I can resize it from there if I need to. Don't really need that for this assignment, but you can see how to do that. Cropping the image. Number 6, click on any empty cell and use the tab key to move from cell to cell. What direction do you move when you're using the tab key? Very important as far as entering data in quickly. You want to know or understand what happens when you press the tab key. So if I'm in cell B35 and I press the tab key, where am I going to end up? Well, let's check and find out. I press the tab key. Sure enough, I'm moving from left to right. And so if a question asks you, I'm in cell C35 and I press the tab key 3 times, which cell would I end up in? Count over with 3 times. 1, 2, 3. I should end up here in F35. Let's check and see if I'm right. 2, 3. Sure enough. Wow. Amazing. The tab key, just important to remember. It's a keyboard shortcut and it moves you to the right. Question number 7, use the auto sum to get a total in cell 43D. So 43D is right here, and I want to add up all this information. Now I could just add in a number right there. I could do all that math in my head if I wanted to. 4 numbers, not so difficult. But what if I had 500 numbers? That would be much more time consuming. And so a quick, easy way to do that on the computer in Microsoft Excel is to highlight all this information. Remember, that's a really important part. Anything that you want to manipulate or you want to change, you need to highlight it first. And once I've done that, I'm going to click on this function up in the top right hand corner of the Home tab right next to Sort, which is the auto sum. Again, if you're maximized, it'll actually say the word auto sum. This is the Greek letter for sum, and so when I click on it, it's going to add up all that information, and there it pops up right there in 43D. And now that I've got that number in there, it's a little bit small, and it's not the same text as far as everything else in my document, and so I'm going to change the font and the font size, and that just so happens to be what I'm supposed to do for question number 8, change the font size and style to match the rest of the document. So now I've got this 51, and it's not the same style, Calibri, as everything else in this document, which is Kristen ITC. And so I also noticed that the size is quite a bit smaller. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to find Kristen ITC and change it to 18-point font. So I go up here to Kristen, so I've got to go alphabetical order down to the K's. Find Kristen ITC, and it just happens to be the last K there, and so we've got Kristen ITC. I changed it. It's still 11-point font, and I'm going to change that to 18, and now it matches everything else in the document. That's good. The second to last question asks me to change the page orientation of your Excel spreadsheet from portrait to landscape. That's an important thing to know. Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word, they both print off in portrait mode or orientation, and Microsoft PowerPoint prints slides in landscape. That's one important thing to note. But however, you can change that if you want to, and in order to do that, I'm going to change it in the page layout tab, the way that my page is laid out on the screen or when I print. And so if I click page layout, you'll notice that I have orientation, and there is portrait and landscape. One just flipped over on its end, and so those are really my 2 choices. You'll notice that portrait is already selected, and when I click on landscape, you're going to also notice a little dotted line appears. right after the column L. And what that's letting me know is that's where my page ends. And so right now, if I scroll back up, I also notice that this chart that I've put in there is kind of cut off. And so what would happen if I printed right now is 3 pages would actually print. The first page, the second page, and then a third page that just has this little tiny box because it's not completely inside my margins. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to resize it a little bit and make sure everything fits inside my margins by moving it around a little bit. Every once in a while I have a student who clicks on the chart that's inside, and when they try to move it around, it's moving the chart around on the inside, and they get really confused about that and frustrated. If you ever do that, if you ever make a mistake, we've got this really helpful little undo button. When I click on it, it takes me back one move. And so I've got a couple of moves here, but it took me back to the left. I wanted to actually keep that one, and so I'm going to click forward or redo. And so this is how I want it to look. I'm going to keep it that way. My last question was to resize and move all images and graphs to fit inside the new borders, and we just actually ended up doing that just now. I must have known what to do, I guess, and so that's what I'm going to ask you to do. This has been our Microsoft Excel review. I hope you enjoy, and now get to work.